Hi everyone, it's me. It's Gabe or GJW22 here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about a topic that's pretty spicy in the TF2 world, and that's the topic of random crits. More specifically, we are going to be talking about Uncle Dane's video titled Remove Random Crits from Team Fortress 2. Now, I fundamentally disagree with Uncle Dane's video, and that's why I'm making mine. This isn't the first time I've talked about this. I actually have a thread on Reddit that I created a long time ago, way back, and I actually talked about this and why I think we should keep random crits in the game. That is my primary viewpoint in this video, is why I think we should keep random crits in this game. Now, if you saw that Reddit thread, you saw that I linked to a Google Doc, which was a script for a video I thought I'd never make, but here we are, and now I'm making that video. So before I jump right into my arguments and kind of trying to say why Uncle Dane is wrong and say why I am right, I'd like to first offer this to you guys. Now, Uncle Dane said that we're all in the minority here, and we're all on the same team, and we all want TF2 to succeed. And I really agree with him on that. That's probably one of the biggest things I want to bring up here is we're all on the same team, and we all want TF2 to succeed. So let's not berate each other. Let's not berate me. Let's not berate Uncle Dane. Let's try to keep it clean, and let's all just have a discussion on random crits, because really that's what this video is to start. I want to start a discussion on random crits, because right now it seems like a lot of people either have an opinion on one side or the other, and they don't see the benefits of both. So I would like to talk about both sides. Uncle Dane's video is kind of the one side, which is remove them, and my video is kind of the side of keep them. So originally what I was going to do is I was going to jump in to Uncle Dane's video and kind of deconstruct all of his arguments and talk about those. But instead, I'm going to focus on a few arguments that I thought are important. So, in his video, he argues that TF2 has changed so much over the years that it's almost unrecognizable compared to what it was when random crits were created. He argues that random crits were used to break stalemates then, and we don't really need that anymore. I disagree with him. I think TF2 still has the same core premises as it did back in the day, and they won't change anytime soon. On King of the Hill maps, you're always fighting over one point in the center of the map. On payload maps, you're always trying to push a payload or trying to defend a payload. There are always points, and it's always in a line. It's always typically a longer map than others. These things don't really change. Although the game around these core principles changes, the core principles themselves don't. The next argument I'm going to bring up is how Uncle Dane said that random crits were originally intended to break stalemates, which is true. They were originally intended to break stalemates on maps like Dust Bowl before we had new maps, before we had a lot of things that are now in the game. And while yes, there are a whole bunch of new balancing decisions that could be made with the new things we have in the game, it doesn't really mean that we can't still have random crits. Just because they're not serving their original intended purpose doesn't mean they need to be removed from the game. They're still a fun little mechanic, and I think since TF2 hasn't changed that much, and we still have some stalemates on some maps and some choke point areas, random crits can sometimes break those stalemates, and there's nothing better than the feeling of critting 4 or 5 people in a hallway. I think we all can agree on that. So, random crits not breaking stalemates like they're originally intended to doesn't really matter to me. You see, it all comes down to whether or not you believe TF2 should be competitive only or not. And there's more on that towards the end of the video, but for something I'm going to say now, I think random crits are fine and casual because there's nothing wrong with having a random chance to kill a whole bunch of people in a tight, cramped area. Random crits aren't really crowd control. You can't fire into a whole bunch of enemies unless they're in a tight area and expect to get a bunch of kills. It just doesn't work. So random crits usually only affect one player, and those sudden moments of it affecting the entire game are really high moments and memorable moments of a match. Sometimes there are bad memorable moments, sometimes there are good memorable moments, but at the end of the day, that's the price you pay for a random aspect in a casual mode of a game. Okay. You're going to have to bear with me now because his next argument is a little difficult to follow. His next argument is that random crits don't teach new players and are actually a detriment to their skill. I disagree with the magnitude that he seems to put on this argument. While yes, random crits don't increase skill, they certainly don't teach people the wrong way to play. Let's take, for example, a demo crits people and kills them by spamming like he shows in his video.
you into a crowd of people worked really well for them once when they randomly killed 5 people with a crit grenade launcher, so why wouldn't they just keep doing that over and over?
This isn't the wrong way to play TF2. Spamming over walls, especially that wall in particular on Frontier, actually works a lot of the time, including a lot of other places that demo men particularly spam and sometimes get random crit kills with. Using that argument doesn't really work because demo men and soldiers spam around corners to do chip damage all the time. Rewarding that with a crit sometimes doesn't teach a player the wrong way to play the game. In his video, he says random crits are a detriment to the natural growth of skill in a player in a pub match. While maybe in competitive it works a bit less than pubs, spamming a choke point or an objective where you know enemies are is a pretty good way to deal consistent and important damage on the teams that are trying to hold a choke point or buildings. Rewarding a demo for doing that teaches them that principle. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Especially in pubs where new players should be spamming chokes, it is one of the most important things to do. There are a ton of players in a 12v12 pub match, and spamming chokes does a lot of damage to heavy medic combos or pretty much anything in a hallway. He also says the game isn't designed to coddle new players and give new players random crits, stating the fact that players who are on a good streak typically get random crits more often than players on a bad streak. And while yes, maybe that's true, the game also wasn't designed around Force and Nature Scouts pushing heavies off cliffs, flying backburner pyros, taunt kills, or rollouts that let engineers have buildings all at level 3 before the gates open. Saying that random crits are not inherently good for new players because the game wasn't made for that reason is something I strongly disagree with. Another part of this umbrella argument against random crits not teaching new players anything is an example he used in damage numbers. And though I agree with him that learning how to track damage numbers is a very important and useful skill, random crits don't really throw a wrench into that learning process. Knowing the damage that every weapon can do, even with a critical hit, is just as important. Let's say, for example, 1 in every 25 rockets is a random crit, since on the TF2 wiki it says there's about a 4% chance if a player has dealt 200 damage in 20 seconds. This means every 25 new rockets a player shoots, there's a 4% chance that one of them will crit. This means regular damage numbers are still used 96% of the time, making this a much smaller argument than most people thought. A new player learning a different fallout from shooting a rocket just 4% of the time isn't even that big of a deal. I'd argue this even helps new players. How many Kritzkrieg rockets does it take to kill a fully overhealed heavy? More oftentimes, it's more than one. A player can learn this without even getting crits from a medic. How many crits can a soldier take from an Engie? More often than not, more than one. Now, when an Engie gets the glowing Frontier Justice crits, new players learn to keep their distance, because when they got a random crit on a soldier with the shotgun before, it didn't kill them. See, it works both ways here. He then goes on to say that, in summary, random crits invalidate skill, which, in my opinion, is just wrong. And while yes, sometimes players win fights they shouldn't have won because of random crits, in reality, it's a pub. People are there to learn, have fun, DM. Random crits don't really harm that experience. He even says that by the numbers, you should get crits the more damage you deal, which even shows that random crits actually reward skill instead of invalidating it. Now for the last argument I'm going to touch on. The argument of, why don't you just play competitive if you don't like random crits? He poses that question to himself in the video, and he says about it himself that he shouldn't be confined to competitive just because he doesn't want to play with random crits. And then he argues that if you do want to play with random crits, you could go right to a community server that has them enabled. If you're not seeing the contradiction here, I don't really know how to help you. I shouldn't be confined to community servers just because you want random crits to be off. Just like you shouldn't be confined to competitive just because you want random crits to be off. It's the same thing here. There's two sides to the opinion, and confining either one to anything is kinda messed up. He then goes on to argue that only having community servers with random crits would populate those community servers, and that we should keep official TF2, Valve TF2, as close to the competitive version as we can, just like other games like Counter-Strike that do that. There's a lot to unpack here, so we're going to kind of break it down step by step. The first argument I already broke down. I shouldn't be confined to community servers just like you shouldn't be confined to competitive. The next argument I'm going to unpack is the one where he says that removing random crits from official Valve TF2, aka removing random crits from casual, would make a boost for the player numbers of the community servers that have random crits enabled. When Meet Your Match came out, everybody said the same thing about removing quick play. Funk said the same thing about casual and how it would bring more popularity to community servers in a video he made back when Meet Your Match came out. He said that for people who want their, quote, classic TF2 hijinks, community servers are going to be their place to be, because now casual is moving in a more competitive direction. Now that we see a few years later, community servers are still in life support and dying. So if something as large as a casual mode change doesn't bring people to community servers, I'm sure random crits won't. Also, what if all the servers running random crits have terrible plugins or admin abuse, or if they're running a map I don't want to play? Casual is meant to reach every player, not just competitive ones, and removing random crits kind of removes that. There are casual players who want random crits, and there are competitive ones who don't, but removing them from casual isn't a good idea. Now, the last argument he made is the one I wanted to unpack the most. He says that removing random crits from TF2 will make TF2 as close to competitive as possible, and that's what we should be doing to show that TF2 can be a competitive game in the modern world. I completely disagree with that argument. When you think of games that are competitive right now, yes, you think of games like Counter-Strike and Dota, where the casual and competitive mode are very similar. But there's also a really big competitive game that everyone's missing. It was in a Funk video, and here's a hint. It's Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now, Melee is a big competitive game. Their Twitch streams get a lot of viewers when there's a major. There's majors in a bunch of different places that get a lot of people to go to them. There's people who will do anything just to get their hands on a GameCube controller and a game of Melee. In these competitive games, they use engine exploits, and they turn off and ban a lot of items that are otherwise unbalanced, as well as maps that they view in the same light. TF2 right now does the same thing. Their competitive mode is community run, they ban maps, they ban weapons, and their competitive mode and casual mode are two totally different things, just like in Super Smash Bros. Melee. It's possible to have both things, and it's possible for both of them to be good. There's no reason TF2 has to have a casual mode that's the same as competitive mode. Just because it works for other games doesn't mean it's the end-all be-all. I think the appropriate solution here is to add an unranked 6v6 like Funk says in his video, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. Back to the topic of this video though, random crits can stay in TF2 casual because casual doesn't have to be the same as competitive. So, you've made it this far in the video. This is the ending. We've reached the end of all of his arguments and we've reached the end of mine. So I just want to reiterate some of the things that are really important here. Random crits are fine in TF2, and all of the arguments that Uncle Dane makes about random crits that I went through in this video have pretty much shown you the other side of them. Now it's time for you to make your own opinion. You can post it in the comments, you can post it on Reddit, you can post it on Steam, you can post it in game. It doesn't matter. But what you have to do now is form your own opinion about random crits with the knowledge that I've given you and the knowledge that Uncle Dane has given you. With the two arguments that you've seen, you can now form your own opinion. It's time for everybody to talk about it, and we'll try to reach a common solution. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching the video, and hopefully you got a couple of arguments here. Overall, I think we should keep random crits, and I hope this video has made you see it in that light or even gotten you to my side. Once again, I'd like to reiterate that we shouldn't be fighting about this. We should be having a discussion. And I don't hate Uncle Dane, and I hope Uncle Dane doesn't hate me. For the record, I think he's a really smart guy, and he's done a lot for this community. I just disagreed with his point on random crits. And everyone's allowed to disagree with that. I think I said a point, I mean opinion. I'm doing this outro live, so this is a little weird. Since you did make it this far, I figured I would let you know that this is the first pre-recorded commentary I've ever done, so I'm sorry if any of it sounds like scripted or pre-recorded. I'm not really good at this. I'm doing my best, so hopefully you guys like it and enjoyed, and I'll be coming back with some more TF2 content in the future. Thank you guys for watching. Peace out, everybody.